perspective is concerned for that, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, senior advocate and former member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha, joining us on the show as well. Mr. Jethmalani, it's always a pleasure having you with us. Now, this Hindenburg case, Hindenburg was claiming it was exposing India's largest corporate fraud. Now that we have a final report from SEBI, Mr. Jethmalani, does the Adani Group become conclusively exonerated, in your opinion, thanks to this report?
Yeah, conclusively vindicated, no question about it. The Supreme Court had only left one outstanding investigation, which SEBI said they were still investigating, and that was whether there were any related third-party transactions. You remember that people said that, companies of the Adani Group had been funded through conduit companies, and there were related party transactions. That's been definitively now laid to rest. So the Adanis stand completely vindicated. There's no stain on them whatsoever. And on the other hand, the shoe is on the other foot, because I think Hindenburg and those who brokered this entire transaction need to be examined.
But critics are saying that SEBI has taken perhaps a very long time seeking multiple extensions. Do you believe the regulator has demonstrated due diligence in this case, in the way this process has been conducted, this entire probe?
Well, I don't think it's taken a long time, because, you had to unravel many third-party transactions and see if they were really related parties. Then you had to apply the law. Ultimately, the question was that these related party transactions did not apply to them, because the definition of related party transactions was widened in post-2021, and these transactions preceded it and couldn't be applied retrospectively. So, if matters are done, if matters are disposed of speedily, there is going to be criticism, as you saw in the Vantara case today. If matters are not, matters take a long time, they are also criticized. So I think you should leave, unless you find that the reasoning that is given by the concerned authority, in this case the regulatory authority being SEBI, if you find that reasons are unsound and completely untenable, then perhaps one can voice criticism. But when you say that it took too long or it took too short, I don't think that's an answer to the main allegations against any group.
And now that there has been no liability that has been found on Gautam Adani and Rajesh Adani and Jogeshnder Singh individually, I'm wondering if this effectively shuts the door on any further legal challenges they may have in India.
Well, the vested interests in this country always find something to bandy about, either for publicity or for blackmail or for short selling, right? So you can never put up. That's part of being an open market economy. But the remedy is to go after those who make the false allegations. There's been a lot of investor loss in this company. There's an attempt to undermine our stock markets. This wasn't just an Adani hit. Indirectly, it was an attack both on investors and the stock market generally, and therefore the health of the Indian economy. That was the whole game, and that's pernicious, and that should be investigated.
So how should it be investigated, Mr. Jethmalani? Because I'm just wondering how this ruling is going to play into the narrative, that narrative of India versus foreign forces. It was strongly pitched after the report. So tell us exactly how you think that entire narrative is placed after this final report has come out.
I think foreign forces were utilized, right? Because the hit came from abroad. Hindenburg is no more than a short seller. And basically, he's a research analyst. Before this entire short sale took place and this attack on Adani took place, the whole focus was on Hindenburg's great reputation. As things turn out, they're only a research analyst on certain select companies. They don't have a great record. So there was a hype about Hindenburg. They were, almost saying that Hindenburg was the high priest of stock market analyses and so on and so forth. It wasn't. There were people behind them. Right, you found out that there was a U.S. investor with a very dubious wife running a fund. So most of it came from that. Then the broker belonged to was the broking wing of a well-known bank in this country, right? So it's not also all entirely foreign, right? Part of it may have been, right? I don't know whether the brokers knew who the ultimate short sellers were, but Hindenburg was a puffed up entity, which really only did some research analysis, and most of the research analysis was found in certain questions raised in Parliament. Right? Uh, they actually plagiarized a lot from what was already in the public domain and which was never taken seriously.
Since it was in the public domain, Mr. Jethmalani, Hindenburg, of course, has consistently stood by its report. They have maintained that. What message now does this clean chit from SEBI send to global investors and to short sellers as well about the Indian markets, about the processes that we follow legally as well?
Well, that the Indian markets are resilient, that the regulatory agencies do a very good job, and India has a big enough economy to withstand any such misadventures.
So do you see this ruling as a vindication of our regulatory robustness as well? Because ammunition for those who argue that regulators protect certain corporates and all of that, has that been put to rest?
I hope so. I mean, let's see what the reaction is, right? If it's not a hysterical reaction, right? If it's not a concerted hysterical reaction and it's reasoned, right? It may not be laid to rest. But according to me, this episode has finally been laid to rest. It has now been conclusively established, both on facts and law, that there were no related party transactions, and that's the end of the matter, right? If anybody can find fault with SEBI's order, so be it.
So these opposition parties, as far as SEBI is concerned, this order could blunt their criticism. Do you believe that? Because this perception battle is still something that is going to be in play, isn't it?
You're putting it mildly. Why are you saying blunt their criticism? It's demolished their whole organized bogus campaign.
And yet you're saying that this order can be challenged in the Supreme Court, given that the court itself had sought an investigation into these allegations.
No. My could is a logical possibility. Yes. Any adventurer can go to the Supreme Court.
Are you expecting it?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the order. So I don't expect it. But there could be, there are always some people who are gunning for one corporate against another, over vested interests, or destabilize the economy, ruin a particular reign, or just to extort money.
Right. So going ahead from here, from a lawmaker's perspective, do you think India now needs stronger statutory checks on short seller reports that have the power to disrupt markets the way they did in this particular case, like Hindenburg report did?
Yeah, I think there need to be. I'm not saying that if there's, if a stock is justifiably overvalued, there shouldn't be short selling. But this was a concerted attempt to rock a particular corporate entity without realizing the consequences, that you were really actually, hitting a lot of poor investors. Right? And for the sake of those poor investors, the root cause, the motives, the root cause, and all those who were involved, right? All those, right? And it's not just foreign forces, please. There was an echo chamber here as well, right? Who was feeding who what information, I don't know. That direction has to be firmly exposed, right? There were all kinds of people who were inimical to not just the Adani Group, but also to India's economy. That's for sure. Short selling is the easiest thing to do, actually. It basically tries to ruin markets, right? And short selling has to be there have to be rules clearly delineating how a short seller should operate. That has to be shored up.
But what about other laws? Is there a case now for Parliament to look into clearer legislation around related party transactions or offshore fund disclosures, promoter holdings? You see the kind of episodes that we have seen in recent times, so that they don't snowball again, perhaps stricter legislation coming through.
I think the legislation is already in place, and from time to time amendments are made. And there is the listing regulations are there. The related third-party transactions, were amended as late as 22, I think, if not 23, right? So from time to time, with experience, right, the market is getting more mature, and the regulators are bringing in regulations and laws which are more stringent and more effective. So that's happening.
Yes.
That's happening. Right? A perfect system evolves with time.
But you also spoke about short sellers. Do short sellers still play this critical role in keeping the markets honest, or should we look at regulating them more closely after this saga?
And you got to make sure about the motives of short sellers, right? If it's a attempt to destroy a market, right, as opposed to really believing genuinely that a stock is overvalued, then yes. But when you have this magnified hype, right, and a concerted attempt, and it has a reflection in Parliament, etc., you know that this is an orchestrated campaign, right, to hit a particular corporate entity, and also simultaneously, right, negligently or willfully, to undermine the Indian markets.
Legally, Mr. Jethmalani, to round off this discussion, what lessons do you think boards of Indian conglomerates should learn from the Adani-Hindenburg battle? At the end of the day, it is not about Adani alone. It's about the credibility of Indian markets. It's about the way the regulators work, how our legal system operates. And it's viewed by global capital very closely.
Well, make sure that you are always in strict compliance with regulations and laws, A, B, and make sure that your stock is not manipulated or overvalued.
Mr. Jethmalani, it's always very educative to speak to you. Thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this all-important story that we've been tracking. Have a great evening.